Have you ever had these inner fights with yourself that you actually plan to do more sports, more exercise, to eat more healthy, and then you end up sitting on the sofa eating pizza and binge watching Netflix? I think we all know that. And in the previous video, I've explained you that this is not a sign of failure, it's just bad team management. Bad team management? Yes, because you're not one person, you're actually a team of inner agents where you are the director. And these inner agents, they make decisions from one moment to the other. They look for comfort, pleasure. Whereas the director, you are setting the goals, the long-term goals you want to achieve. And of course, you're expecting yourself, your inner agents, to play this with you, to also play in order to achieve that goal, but they don't. And in the last video, I showed you a Notion template that I built that helps you to manage these inner agents. First, to identify them. Second, to develop tactics and habits to work against them or to avoid for them to show up more often, because that's what you don't want. So this template helps you to be a better team leader, basically. And you find this template in the description. However, if you want to build it yourself, then just follow along. We are going to do that now together. So this is the template I was talking about that we're going to build now together. So you find here a database that holds your inner agents. You can call them however you like. My inner agents are the planner that always wants to organize and prepare, and thereby my planner avoids that I take action. So then I have the overachiever, the one that is a perfectionist and that always sends unrealistic standards. And very dominant is the procrastinator, who avoids long-term tasks and distracts with scrolling YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or something else. Then you have here the triggers database that make your inner agents appear. So for example, when I'm tired, it's definitely the procrastinator that appears. Fear of failure is the overachiever, and new ideas is the planner. I don't just start with new ideas, I need to plan them until I have the feeling that they are perfect, which will never be the case. Then we have the tactics and habits databases that help you to keep your inner agents better under control. So they are basically, these tactics and habits, they're basically helping you to prevent these inner agents to appear. Then we have a goals database here. That's of course very important. You can jot down your goals in here. Also identify why they matter. So why is it important for me to write a thesis or to finish my website? Why? For what purpose? And then you can tag a category here. You can define them as long-term or short-term. The agents, very important, they're conflicting with. Of course, if I write a thesis, it's not necessarily always something that I fully enjoy. So there's very easily my procrastinator popping up and telling me, oh, maybe it's better that we just scroll some Instagram videos. And then you can here state the status, whether it's not started, in progress, or already done. Here you also find a database that I call experiments. These experiments help you to try things out that make you, or that to try things out that help leading your inner agents better. So for example, an experiment that I'm trying to lead my inner planner agent better is a one-take week. So this is supposed to lower my internal standards and break my planner's optimize loop. So, but now let's go into how we actually build this. So we are creating a new page. I always do full width because I like it more, and we call it inner agent management system. Okay, so now we need a database. So we click slash and then database inline, and this we call inner agents. So then rewrite down here one inner agent. Let's call it the procrastinator. Then we have here a property that describes the behavior pattern. And for the procrastinator, that would be avoids long-term tasks, for example. So what else is important for our inner agents database? Let's see what else we find actually here. So we can open this as a full page. So now you see here that we have 3 views. We have the gallery view, we have an essential view, and we have the agent deep dive. The agent deep dive holds all the properties that are in this database. So what else do we have here? We have a select property that tells us if this agent is helpful or harmful. Here you can say depends, helpful or harmful. So we create a select property and call this helpful/harmful. Okay, and now we can edit this property and click here or write down here helpful, harmful, or depends. Okay. So you can say here procrastinator depends, but I actually find it harmful. So I don't like when this agent shows up. So for me, it's rather harmful. Okay, what else do we have? The other properties that we have here are all relations or a roll-up. So the first relation that we have is related to our triggers database. So let's build a triggers database. So we click again /database inline, new database, and we call it trigger. So what is the trigger for our procrastinator is the feeling of tiredness. So then you can define here where it usually shows up. So in which environment. Oh, again. Okay, where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay, so in which environment, here it can be at work, can be at home, can be online, can be in a social context. So, but let's actually do this a multi-select property because it can pop up in different occasions, for example. So what else do we have in our triggers database? This we can change this view here again. So then we have our associated agent and the desired override. So what are you going to do if this agent pops up? So what are you going to do if you notice that this trigger pops up? If you feel that you're getting tired, but you still need to get the work done. So in this case, you could use some time blocking and break down your task into very, very small steps, into very small chunks that are easily to digest and easily to digest. Okay, so let's create our relation to our inner agents. Therefore, we click here on this plus and we choose relation and we link them to inner agents. Here. That's a two-way relation. Okay. And now we can link it here to our procrastinator. Perfect. Then we have the desired override. That's a text property. Desired override. Okay. Break down tasks into small steps, for example. And that's already it for our triggers database. So the next database our inner agents are linked to, so let's open this again as full page, is the associated goal. Or let's first start with the tactics. So we move that here. Okay, so now if we go back to our inner agents, we open this as page again, then we see that here we have a rollup, desired override. So this is the rollup that this is the property that we actually find in our triggers database. So let's create this rollup here in our inner agents database. So we click here again on a property, we click rollup, and we call it desired override. Then here, edit property, here you have to choose the relation, in that case it's trigger, and the target property is the desired override. And then you have it shown up here as well. So the next property that we find is our tactics property. So let's create a database for tactics. Database inline again, it's a new database, and we call it tactics. So here one tactic is put phone in another room. So then the next property in our tactics database is a text property that is called the target behavior. And what are we going to, or what do we want to achieve when we put our phone in another room? We want to reduce phone distraction. So we want to reduce phone distraction. Okay, that would be our target behavior. Then we can link this tactics database to our inner agent. So let's create again our relation property here, and we link it to inner agents here, this one. It's again a two-way relation, yes, here. And we link this to our procrastinator. And then you see here popping up the tactics. And we can also rename this. You can of course call it inner agents, but we can also call it exploit agents or exploit agent, because it's usually only one exploit agent. Then we can also add here a select property again, and we call this type. And then we can edit this property, add an option, and call this friction or an environment or incentive, for example. And this is friction type here. Okay. And then you can also rate the effectiveness. So this would be a number property, which we call effectiveness, and we rate that from 1 to 5. So how effective is it really to put my phone in another room in order to reduce phone distraction or in order to reduce social media usage? So if I really only wanted to reduce phone distraction, then it might be very effective because I don't have my phone at hand. So I would rate it 5. However, let's say we duplicate this. If I want to put the phone in another room because I want to reduce not only phone distraction, I want to specifically reduce social media usage, then it might in the end not be so effective because you can reach social media from basically all your devices. So if I'm working on my laptop, I do have access to all my social media platforms. So then it might actually not be very effective, and I rate it only with 2. So this helps you then to identify the best working tactic to better lead your inner agent. And then you can also write down some notes here, something that helps you. For example, it helps you to know that this works best in the morning, for example. So if in the morning you notice, okay, I'm procrastinating because I'm using my phone, then I could check here what helps best, which tactic could I use now. So I put my phone in another room in the morning, because what else do we have in our inner agents database? We have our associate. Well, let's do the habits first because they go along with the tactics. So let's first create the habits database. So we go again slash database inline, empty database habits. So here you could say just do it for 5 minutes. So 5 minutes doesn't feel long. So it is easier to overcome the initial activation in energy. So it's easier to convince your inner agent. So, and then you could, of course, link here again your, oh, not a checkbox, that's not what I wanted. So we delete this. We add a relation again and link this to our inner agents. Okay, the inner agent we are targeting here is the procrastinator. So we can call this, of course, inner agent or active agent. So then you can add here a description, which is text property description, or let's call it action better. So action. So what are you going to do in this habit? So start doing no matter what without thinking, just for 5 minutes. You can stop after these 5 minutes, but I bet you will not, because once you're in motion, you usually keep doing. So what we can also then enter is the effort that it takes us to do so. So we add a select property and call this effort. We edit the property and we add an option here. So the effort can be low or medium or high. So just do it for 5 minutes. It's not that it is effortless, but I will call it medium. It's also not high effort. So then you could add properties that are called mood before. So what could be a habit that targets our inner procrastination agent? For example, break down tasks into little bites. So then we can add a description here and we call it, not description, but we call it action. And we describe what we are going to do here. So we break down big tasks. They don't objectively have to be big, but for you, since your inner procrastination agent is showing up, they feel big. So you break down those big tasks into small units, and these small units, they can be as small as they feel digestible, good digestible for you. So they can be very, very small into small units so that we feel successful with checking them off. Okay, so that would be the action that we are going to take. Okay, then we can link it to our inner agents. So we create a relation. We link it to our inner agents, two-way relation, and we link it to our procrastinator. The next property is a select property, which we call effort. So we can rate our effort here. We edit this property, add an option. The effort can be low, it can be medium, or it can be high. And this, I guess, is medium. So then we can add another select property, which we call mood before. We edit this property again and we call it good, bad, or meh. Mood before we did so is, I guess, something between meh and bad. So when my procrastinator shows up, I usually don't feel so good, so I put bad. And then we can just duplicate this property and call it mood after. Oops. Mood after. So, and then you can also again here select between good, bad, and meh. I guess we should feel good. If not, then this is not a habit that you should continue doing. So if you feel good afterwards, then this is an indicator that this is a habit that you should continue with. Okay, and then we can add a last property here, which would be a number property, and we call this effectiveness. And this we can rate from 1 to 5. And this also gives you another hint on whether or not you should continue with that habit. So if this is very effective, then a clear sign that you should continue with it. So what else do we find in our inner agents database? We find our associated goals and experiments. So let's create the associated goals database. Let's call this goals. And create a new goal, call it the right thesis. So then you write here, why does that matter? And why does writing a thesis matter? Of course, it's an academic milestone. It gives peace of mind. It provides, or it offers more job opportunities. Whatever comes to your mind here. Then we can assign it to a category. So we create a select property again, which we call category. We edit this. This can be work. This can be personal. This can be health. Whatever category you can enter here. So this is clearly a work-based goal. Could also be a personal goal actually, because it gives you peace of mind. So let's just change this into a multi-select property here. Okay, then you can select more than just one category. Okay. So then another select property, which we call time frame. And here we create two options. This can be short term or long term. This is a long-term goal. Then, of course, you can define the status. Where is it? Here, status. Not started, in progress, or done. This is in progress. And finally, we also relate it to our inner agents. Inner agents. Okay, two-way relation again. And here we now add the agent that is in conflict with our goal. So agent conflicts, we call this. And the agent that is in conflict with our goal of writing the thesis is, of course, the procrastinator. Okay, then we are done with our goals database, and we are missing one, which is the experiments database. So we click again /database, new database, and we call this experiment. And here we are defining an experiment that could, if successful, convert into a habit or a tactic. So what could be an experiment that helps us leading our inner procrastinator better? It could be, for example, I call it the shame sprint. What does that mean? The shame sprint has the hypothesis, let's call this hypothesis, that if I, what did I do here? That's not what I was grouping. We don't want grouping, so okay. If I work in public or I co-work with someone, I do not procrastinate so much. So this holds you accountable. If you work in public, or better even work with someone together, you are held accountable by this person, this other person who wants to work with you. So you feel observed, you feel being checked, you feel being controlled, and that might help to overcome procrastination. So then you can define a start date and also an end date. So that defines the time frame for how long you want to try this experiment. So let's say I try it from next Monday until next Sunday, and then I evaluate how it was working. And therefore I again create a select property, which I call success. And then I add the options successful, more or less, or not successful. So, and if I know, okay, that was successful, then I could implement that and say, okay, once a week I go to a coffee shop, I go to work with someone else. I could transfer that to my tactics database. Actually, that helps me to have better control of my inner procrastinator agent. And then I could also write or define the outcome even better and say, I was much more focused when working with someone else, for example. And what we are missing here is, of course, the link to our inner agents. So we create a relation again, and we link this to our inner agents. Two-way relationship, okay. And then we link that to our procrastinator. Okay, so now we are done with our databases. And then, of course, you could polish the template a bit. So you could create different views, for example. Let's create a gallery view here for our inner agents. And we want to give it a page cover. Let's call it just simply gallery. And the properties that we want to have visible here is our behavior pattern. Then is our trigger. And this is our desired override that we also want to see here. So let's give this a nice picture. We add a cover, change this cover. Let's see what we find when we look for procrastination. Let's choose this one. Okay, the same, of course, you could do for all the other agents you are listing here. And of course, you could also polish the triggers, tactics, habits, goals, and experiments database according to your liking. And you could also rearrange that a bit. So let's create two different columns. In one, we put our inner agent. And in the other one, we put our other databases. Okay. And that's how you can build your own inner agent management system in order to help you put yourself back into the director's seat and take control of all your inner agents. I hope this was helpful, and if you are up for more Notion tutorials, more about Notion and automation, about productivity, then I would be very happy about a like and a subscribe, and then see you in the next tutorial. Bye bye!